Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to your very favorite Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike L. And as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell. And today we're going to be taking a look at a Marvel graphic novel from 1986. I believe August it was released.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Marvel graphic novel number 22.
Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man in Hooky by Susan K. Putney and Bernie Wrightson, which we'll talk about in a minute. But first we got to talk about our co-hosts. First we got G.I. Jolie.
Hey!
All right.
Woo! Thanks for joining us.
What's up?
Glad you could make it. And of course, on her day off, joining us, Bex Luthor.
Now everyone knows my work schedule.
Uh-oh.
Now they're gonna come to my
Stalker
work
City.
and find me again, like that one time. Don't do that.
Wait, really?
Well, we can talk about it later, but yes.
Oh my god.
It's okay, we don't know what city you're in. We're good.
That's fine. They did find me through the comic book syndicate, though, so.
Oh my god.
Because it's just such a popular show, everybody watches it and listens to it.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, speaking of popular things, we got to talk about our co-host here for the second time on our show. I thought it was more. It feels like more. That's a good thing. But anyway, Dave Constantino.
Hi. I meant to be here more times, but I'm here now. So.
Yeah, that's good. And
That's all that
Exactly
matters.
what matters.
and if people, what's the name of your show again? You've got a radio show on CJAM. What is it called again?
It's called Revolution Rock. I host it with Adam Pelche, who I know has been on this show several times.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long has that been going on now?
Oh, long time. Over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is it also available on the web?
It is. You can find it at cgm.ca or revrock.blogspot.com. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And just so everyone knows, what exactly... I think your focus is punk mostly, right? Am I wrong about that?
Kind of. It's a mix of things. So it's like garage, punk, new wave, surf, indie, alternative.
Well, then I have an important question for you before we jump into Spidey.
Okay.
What do you think of the Beach Boys?
I love the Beach Boys, and they're on the next episode.
Oh, shit! All right.
Okay.
Oh, well, maybe I'll tune into that one then.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, now, I know we've probably asked you this before, but it's been a long time since you've been on, but are you a Spidey fan?
I like Spidey.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't like, in real life, spiders, I don't know. But Spider-Man, I have no issue with Spider-Man.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so this is kind of a weird one. I mean, we've been reviewing the regular monthly Spider-Man comics week in, week out, and this week it's a little bit of a change of pace. So this is a graphic novel. So for those that don't know, I know that nowadays graphic novel is kind of a pretentious word for any comic book that is too embarrassed to be a regular comic book. But back in these days when graphic novels were just starting, they were mostly, creator-owned, independently published stuff, right? Like Mouse and stuff like that. But Marvel tried to jump on the bandwagon by just flooding the market with their own graphic novels. So they were oversized, they were on shiny paper. But for the most part, the content was indistinguishable from a typical Marvel comic. You got some gems in there, like X-Men God Loves Man Kills, the first one, Dreadstar, and then a whole bunch of other ones, honestly, by creators I've never even heard of, which is kind of interesting. This one is drawn by an artist named Bernie Wrightson, who at this point, I mean, he's a legend. He's passed away now, but, he's pretty famous for doing Swamp Thing and, some horror comics. So... he's definitely an industry legend. We can talk about him later. This writer, Susan K. Putney, I have never heard of her, and I've looked her up, and as far as I know, this is the only thing she's ever written.
It is the only well-known thing that she's written.
Okay.
Sorry, my audio is being weird. Okay, the thing... Oh, God. Hold on.
You sound good to me.
Really? Okay. Okay, so... The reason why it looks like this is the only thing that she's written is because it pretty much is. Okay. She did a couple of indie comics, of her own, but this was actually a write-in idea.
Seriously?
So she sent this idea into Marvel and they liked it. So they teamed her up with another writer. And which actually I think they teamed her up with Bernie.
Right.
And they created this story.
See, okay.
So
it's interesting because I posted my mini review of this comic on a Facebook page, and almost everyone agreed with me. And our thesis is basically we thought that Bernie Wrightson just wanted an excuse to draw monsters and fantasy and whatever he wanted to draw, and they kind of just found a writer to fill in like the dialogue. But it sounds like it's the exact opposite, which is really surprising to me.
Yeah. So I think that they got him because of the content of the story.
Okay.
And originally, I believe it was supposed to be Doctor Strange.
Right.
And then it was changed to be the X-Force, I believe it was at the time.
Well, no, it would have been X Factor, maybe.
X Factor, yeah. And then eventually changed to Spider-Man. And I think the reason why it was ultimately changed to Spider-Man is because the theme that the story is trying to tell is very Spider-Man-esque, right? It's that like responsibility and kind of growing up and taking care of the thing that you should be taking care of. So I think that, we'll get into this later, I'm sure, but I think that Spider-Man fits well into the themes of this story.
I would argue, though, that Doctor Strange fits the genre more, right? Like the fantasy, metaphysical thing.
I feel like Doctor Strange would... If Doctor Strange was in this story, I feel like none of this would have happened, though, because Doctor Strange is used to all of this stuff. Okay. So there wouldn't really be much of a story, correct?
But is there a story? But anyway, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so first, Josh, why don't you tell everybody what this graphic novel is all about, okay?
Okay, sure. So, we start off with Spider-Man, swinging through the city. He stops a mugging, I believe, in an alleyway. And then once everything's kind of taken care of, he runs into this like woman appears. And it's what's her name?
Yeah, it's
Mandy?
we just talked about it a minute
Oh my
ago.
god.
Marandi?
Marandi, her name is
Spindrifter.
Spindrifter. I've got notes here somewhere. Here we go. Marandi Sjorokker, Sjorokker, something like that. It's like a Norwegian name, I believe, since a lot of this is kind of like pulled from Norwegian culture or Norwegian words, which we'll talk about later. But we see her kind of bump into Spider-Man, and she mentioned something about Uncle Ben, and he's kind of like, what? How does this woman I've never met know who I am? And she goes, oh yeah, don't worry, relax. I can read your aura. It's very clear. You don't remember me though? We met a long time ago. We were kids, and this woman is very young. Like she is actually a kid. She's not a woman. So Spider-Man's a little confused, swings away. He's kind of, he runs into her again later on, and she kind of explains what she's doing there and that she is looking for help with this. Parker, are you kidding me?
I was going to say, can you do the review without grunting?
This is the case where I wish the cameras were on, but anyway.
Yeah, well, it was off screen anyways, but apparently he wanted more food because he jumped up onto the container, but the container was empty and it fell on him.
Oh,
Parker,
poor
come
guy.
here.
Or maybe he just didn't like the comic.
Yeah,
maybe he didn't like the comic. So we find out that she's looking for help to defeat this monster called, now forgive me, I'm not going to say this correctly, I'm sure, but it's Tordenkekerlak. Tordenkekerlak. Something like that. It's like a
Obviously.
weird Norwegian word.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man is a little confused. So he later on calls Wong and tries to figure it out. Doctor Strange isn't home. Wong doesn't really know what it is. So he starts doing research of his own. And he finds out that it's a Norwegian word and it means thunder cockroach. So he's a little confused as to what the heck's going on. Later on, he runs into the girl again, and she says like, "Hey, you can come help me if you'd like." And he, that classic like Parker responsibility thing, like, well, there's somebody in need, I better go help her. So the two of them go down this alleyway, and they open up this door, and it opens up to a portal to another world. And it's kind of this weird, like Lovecraftian, like Jim Henson, like Labyrinth-esque world. Right. In another dimension. And we find out that her powers are kind of like opening up doors, whether it be to other dimensions or other places, whatever it is. The two of them don these like flying capes, and they're flying around this like new world. Peter gets trapped into this one world, and it's like a siren dimension almost, right? So all of these like very beautiful women are trying to like keep him there, and he's like kind of fighting off that urge, that like siren call. So he realizes that like, no, listen, my responsibility, I've got to go help her. As much as I'd love to stay here, I gotta go. So he leaves. And then they kind of, again, start dimension hopping, and they go to this like beautiful world where it's kind of like full of clouds and like clear skies. And then this monster shows up. It's like kind of looks like a fly or like some sort of insect. Spidey is able to defeat it pretty quick, and they get over to Marandi's ship, which is like this huge flying fortress almost in the sky. The two of them start talking, and we kind of get a little bit of backstory of Marandi, and it turns out that her father was this sorcerer. And there's this evil that's after him, and it's kind of cursed within the family. And he falls because of it. And before he dies, he puts a curse on his daughter, so that way she never ages. Because the whole thing is that when she comes of age, when she becomes an adult, that's when this monster is supposed to come and find her and kill her. This thunder cockroach, this Norwegian beast. So this curse is that she stays young forever and she never ages, which is why she would know Peter and they would know each other as kids. But Peter wouldn't recognize her after so many years. And, she stayed young and he's kind of grown up and is now like a college student. So we find out that this insect that they fight actually kind of transforms after it's defeated. It like transforms into like another being and kind of corrects the mistake of how it died before. So it's kind of like an organism that learns from its mistakes and evolves to adapt to whatever killed it before. So it's like almost like a hydra in that sense, where like you cut off one head, two more grow in its place. It's similar to that. So like once you kill it, it like evolves and comes back to life, but changes in a different way as to kind of correct that mistake. So after it's like a bug, it turns into like this beast with like snappers. And then after that's defeated, it turns into like this long flying like snake dragon. And then it's like this big, huge, like goblin looking thing. And then it comes back as like a goblin with more arms. And it's like Spidey's kind of gotta like constantly defeat this thing and learn. And eventually what happens is we learn that Marandi has to turn to an adult, and this thing was actually put there by her father to train her and get her ready and kind of force her into being an adult when the time was right for her. So at the end of the day, she's able to kind of just defeat it by becoming an adult and like giving into that like magic part of her. Peter kind of like helps her out, brings her back into the house once she kind of comes to, and Spidey goes back to New York and leaves her there to kind of, fight this thing.
So I got to give you credit because I think we all learned something. Because I didn't know any of that, even after reading it. But I'm gonna save my comments for a little bit later. But Dave, I know this is only your second appearance, but I hope that we don't put you on the spot by asking you to give the first review. What is your impression of this comic book?
Okay, a few questions. It kind of seems like this was in the 80s, right? 89, you said?
Mm-hmm.
No, 86. 86.
Oh,
86, yeah.
Was it written by someone that had a bad acid flashback? I don't know. But it was not what I expected. It doesn't even seem like a Spider-Man story.
Right. I agree.
Like the drawings, obviously the horror thing, I like that kind of stuff, but like I was very confused. And I was thinking like, if you were a Spider-Man fan at this time and you were like a kid or younger, you'd probably also be very confused. You might like it though because of the monsters, but it reminded me a bit of like The Thing, the drawings, a little bit of the Thing, how it keeps regenerating and changing, things like that. But in general, yeah, it's weird, and my impression of it is that I don't know. It's like, it's different. I'll give it that, but it's kind of strange. It's not traditional Spider-Man, and that's okay. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to someone if that's what you're asking.
Well, we'll get to that. But do you think that maybe Doctor Strange or someone else would have been more appropriate to this story?
Yeah, I think. Well, he's mentioned, right? Doesn't he call him or something?
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, and,
that's close
and Doctor
enough.
Strange is like, fuck that, I don't want to deal with it. But he's like, you deal with it, Spider-Man. You go into the other dimension. But yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, it might have worked. But again, what Josh was saying earlier, like, would it have had the same effect? Would it have got to that point? I don't know. Spider-Man's the selling point, I think, right? They're like, oh, new Spider-Man graphic novel.
Right.
They don't say Spider-Man and the Wizard World in Cloudland, I guess that's my response.
Okay. G.I. Julie, what's your impression of this?
Well, it was called Hooky, so I was like, okay, how do these monsters tie into skipping something? Skipping what?
Right.
What are they skipping? Okay, cool. So they're obviously not skipping school. And then I realized that the name had nothing to do with anything that happens.
Right.
You know what? I like the art. I hate the old man that steals his camera. Like, so many things bothered me throughout this comic. And they kept compounding by showing up. So the art was fantastic, though. I really, really liked the art. It reminded me of 70s and 80s animated films. So
right.
yeah, like Don Bluth, sort of those like really nice painted backgrounds, kind of like not American pop. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, American pop, heavy metal. Yep.
Yeah, it was just so nice to look at. The Lord of the Rings, Fire and Ice.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
That Rake and Bass.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Last Unicorn.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. See. Okay. So everyone knows where I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the love affair kind of ends. Is with the art. The story is really weird. Like, too weird. It's not so weird that I hate it. It's not like Marvel Team Up. I hate this.
Right.
It's I don't know how to feel. I don't dislike this book. I just don't know what happened.
Yep, me neither. Yeah. Bex Luthor, what about you?
I loved it. Everyone is also correct. Spider-Man there's no reason Spider-Man needs to be in this, but he is, otherwise it wouldn't have sold. But
true.
if this didn't have Spider-Man in it, and it was a young girl's coming-of-age story without Spider-Man, and instead of Spider-Man, all of the things that Spider-Man says are just her internal monologue.
Right.
This might have been one of the coolest things that I've ever read. Writing's not great, but it is probably the most aesthetically pleasing thing we've seen on the show. Big fan, actually, of Bernie Wrightson. Didn't realize that it was him who drew this until after I looked it up, and I was like, I know this guy because he did a entire like a 60-page Frankenstein
Yes.
graphic novel.
Oh, I didn't know you read that.
Yeah, I came across it in high school on Tumblr, because all the Tumblr girls were thirsting over how hot Frankenstein was drawn. The internet's fun, and I was like, oh, this art is sick, and it really reminded me of a lot of Japanese horror, like manga horror artists.
Right.
So like, that's kind of where that I found him through. So this is, I love the monster art. I love the Spider-Man with a shield fighting a dragon is probably one of the coolest images that I've seen in a long time. Maybe needs some more work on drawing little girls, but I don't care. That's the thing, is I didn't care that it was a crazy, whacked out high fantasy story that didn't really make sense and didn't explain itself, and because the story is irrelevant. You're here to look at the beautiful art and the interesting universe that it's created, and Spider-Man is just kind of an afterthought. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I had a great time.
It had something like... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Becca.
I was just going to say, more like awful teeth goop monsters, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, Josh, now it's your turn. Go ahead.
I also loved it. I don't think that this is the best story that we've read by far, but I think it's the one that I enjoyed reading the most out of everything we've read on Spidercast. I really, really loved reading this. Again, maybe it's just because it's so different from what we've been reading every single week, but I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, everything that everybody else has said, I kind of agree with. It's weird at times that Spidey's in here. I get it. I get that there's the parallels, right? Like, her whole thing is Spider-Man's whole thing, but the genres don't exactly match up. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the fun of it at times, that Peter's out of his element. But then it kind of like, well, it's weird that Spider-Man is in this other dimension fighting more monsters. Like, he's no longer like a street level, and kind of takes away from what Spider-Man is. But at the same time, that's kind of the fun of it. I love the world that's built. Like, there's so much without them like explaining everything and why this world is what it is, and the reasons for things looking the way that they do. It works for me. Like, it really feels like that Labyrinth, Fraggle Rock type of, Dark Crystal world, where there's things that are there, and they're there for a reason, in like the lore that the creators have made, but they don't need to explain it to you. Why is her ship a mud skipper? I don't know, but I fucking love it. Like this gigantic ship, the head of it is literally the head of a mud skipper, and then the front flippers that are used to like for the mud skipper to like walk around in the mud are the wings of the ship, and these like giant fans come out and like can spread, and her bedposts have like these intricate bird statues carved in, and in like the dome on the castle is like a bunch of like bottles, which I assume are like full of like dirt and seeds to kind of grow fruits and veggies for her to live, because this dimension that she's in is like completely in the sky. And when we see the like domes on this giant ship, we see it's full of green, so she's obviously growing stuff there, but we're never like stopped and told like, listen, I had to do all of this because I live in a giant cloud city. What else am I gonna do? I have to build this entire, you know what I mean? It's just like part of the world, and it feels lived in and real. And I just really enjoyed this place that was made, and this monster too adapting. This is maybe the most unique like just creature that Spider-Man has ever had to fight. That was just like punching, you know what I mean? Like without having like obviously I think it's more fun when it's something like a Hobgoblin where there's like a motivation. But as far as just like monsters for fighting reasons go, this is super great, super unique that it like comes back to life and adapts like the Thing, like was said before. I can't remember who said that. I think
Dave. I think it was Dave.
Dave. Yeah. So, but I really enjoyed it, and the art at times is so fantastic. Like it almost looks like a photograph at times, like, or not like a photograph, but it looks like fine art. Sure. Something you would see on like the cover of a novel or something. I think the tone of the story really goes hand in hand with the art. The art done on the creatures is just like nothing like I've ever read on Spider-Cast, or honestly, I don't think in any other Spider-Man comic. Like, this is great. I mean, there are definitely times where the art doesn't work, like when Marandi is like screaming. She kind of looks like He-Man at times. Like she morphs from a little girl to like, yeah, He-Man. But it's good. I don't know. I absolutely loved this. And had a blast reading it.
Jua, I want to mention the stakes seemed high with this enemy, like quote enemy, and I haven't felt kind of worried for Spider-Man in a long time. With him like being able to regenerate and remember and learn. And the exact point where I thought about it was like when Spider-Man verbalized it, he was like, well, I'm running out of web shooters. Like the canisters are running on low. He's about to pop out of all of the web shooting, like the web that I shot him with. He's powering up and the next attack will destroy me. It felt like, it felt very RPG. I was like, he didn't bring enough potions to this magic world to like, to help him with this battle. I was like, he could die here. I felt like Spider-Man might die. And I haven't felt that in many moons.
Or at least the little girl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was honestly, because I've never heard of this character before, but apparently Spindrifter is a character that shows up.
Really?
I think, right?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's just for this one-off. I was genuinely nervous because the last one we read was like tragic, was it not?
Which one?
Like I think some of the one with the, what was the other graphic novel we read? Or maybe it was that one-off story with that one beast. Whatever it was, like there's other like one-off graphic novel-esque stories. A lot of times because it's a one-off and they introduce these new characters, they kind of have the freedom to do whatever they want with them. So if they want to have a tragedy, they can just kill off the character that they've introduced, because it's a brand new character, and it's for this one-off story that doesn't really have anything to do with the continuity of Spider-Man. Right? I have a feeling that him going to another dimension and fighting this beast is never ever going to come up in Spider-Cast ever again.
No,
you know what I mean? Like
no.
he's not going to mention that in the regular comics. So I was genuinely nervous that she was going to die.
Yeah, I mean, the Nunsuch catches fire, and then the fire doesn't get put out. So there's a huge there's all kinds of risk that I haven't felt since, like, Kingpin kind of had him in his sights and etc.
Here's the thing. I clearly, I think I probably got the least out of this of everyone. Definitely less than Josh. I don't know. I mean, to me, I do like Labyrinth, and I enjoyed Dark Crystal, and I love, what's that movie, Legend, with Tom Cruise by Ridley Scott. But whenever I watch those movies, I'm always excited. We're going to watch this. And then after 4 minutes, I'm like looking at my watch, because at the end of the day, the story's got to be good. And I agree that there's nothing bad about the story. There's nothing bad about the dialogue, and it's partly because it's a Spider-Man story, partly because Spider-Man's in it, but it just didn't pull me in. And maybe if it was just a girl and a neutral character, it would have like pulled me in more. But because it was Spider-Man, it just he sticks out like a sore thumb in this story. It's like, imagine Labyrinth but with Clint Eastwood in it. You'd be like, what? When is he gonna like shoot people? Like, it just feels really off, and I think that really hurt the tone for me. So it was really hard for me to get into the story. Like, I just couldn't, And also, now granted, one weakness I have is that I have like 35 years of anticipation because I saw advertisements for this story when I was a kid, and just like Jolie, I was like, oh, Hooky. What's that going to be about? Is he going to skip school? No, not really. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So
wait, it's her skipping on her responsibilities, right? Like, kind of running away from the thing that you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I mean, even the fact that Peter leaves New York to, kind of get rid of his responsibilities to help her out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so I get it, but yeah, the title is a little strange.
And what's the other thing too is about the art, because I've read a bunch of Bernie Wrightson stuff. I'm not as big a fan as everyone else, as most people. I do think his art is good at times, like you said. Like, obviously his forte is drawing monsters and fantasy. And sometimes when he's drawing Spider-Man, it's like, wow, I've never seen Spider-Man's anatomy like that or whatever. But I think one disadvantage is that we're used to reading like Amazing Spider-Man by Ron Frenz, where Ron Frenz, he hacks out those pages every month, and Spider-Man always looks exactly the same, and he's in almost always the same pose. Whereas this is the opposite, where it's kind of like you said, it's like fine art, where he's probably taking a lot more time on each shot, but because of that, there's a lot of inconsistency in the anatomy and in the characters, the way they look, right, from panel to panel sometimes. So, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, even Spider-Man's mask does not look like Spider-Man normally looks like. It really looks like the 60s cartoon to me.
Yes, you're right.
And I think maybe Bernie never really read Spider-Man up until now, so he just kind of drew a male anatomy like he would normally draw a superhero male anatomy, and then he goes, oh, what does he look like again? Oh yeah, the 60s cartoon. I know what that's right.
You're probably right.
And just kind of copied that, right? It does not look like on
model
the comics at the time.
Right. Which is fine.
I actually don't mind. I kind of like that, to be honest. It gives this comic, to me at least, like a little bit more of that like a little bit of like an older tone. You know what I mean? Like it kind of adds to that like fantasy aspect, and that this is like different from what we're normally reading. Right.
Dave, I know you haven't said anything in a while, but have you changed any of your thoughts? Do you still feel the same way, or what are you thinking here?
I do really like the art. I'm not disagreeing with that. You know what? It's not a terrible thing. It's not like this thing where it's like, you should never read this. It's awful. It's not. But it's also not like you have to drop everything and read this right now. It's kind of, for me, it's in between. I think it's good and bad. It's not terrible, but it's not super amazing.
Right.
It's definitely different. And to be honest, if anyone is into like horror, fantasy, they would probably read this and be like, this is awesome. And they, Spider-Man, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like Spider-Man was just thrown in there. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Like, I commend Marvel for experimenting and for trying different stuff. Like, a lot of their graphic novels at this time were terrible, but at least they're trying to do something different. I think at the end of the day, though, it really should have been Doctor Strange or just anyone but Spider-Man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I can agree with you. It does feel weird at times that Spidey is in this comic.
Right.
I think the X-Men or Doctor Strange or like a bunch of other characters could have come in and replaced Spider-Man, and it would have felt better. I don't think that the reason of like the themes being the same is enough for me to kind of get past some of those weird moments where it feels weird that Spider-Man is like fighting this monster in a cloud city.
Right.
But I also don't mind it. It's enough for me. I can kind of like brush that aside to enjoy the comic.
Sure, yeah.
But is this a good Spider-Man comic? No. But but did I enjoy it, and do I think it's a good idea and a good story and all together good graphic novel? I think yes. If that makes sense.
Sure.
Like I would never give this to somebody as their first Spider-Man comic.
Right.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Something that I know everyone's waiting to talk about, but we haven't mentioned yet.
Okay.
The beginning, when they were referencing the Three Stooges so much.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny, but also kind of like, what's going on? What's everyone's thoughts on that?
I just took it as like forced bad Spider-Man quips. Spider-Man's always trying to be funny when he's fighting crime, but yeah, those Three Stooges references just came off as really forced. That's how I took it.
He does that a lot.
Well, I know.
Actually, he references even the Three Stooges a lot.
Does he?
Yeah, he does. It's one of the things he kind of brings up.
Oh.
I don't know.
It was kind of funny,
strange.
but I was just like, okay. And then he just gets thrown in an alternate cloud dimension.
I feel like it works as like a thing from the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Where it is something relevant that a teenager would reference and talk about, and like if I was a superhero as like a teenager, I'd probably be quoting and referencing a bunch of stuff that I like too.
Yeah.
Right. So I think as an 80s comic, it's kind of right. It works. But looking at it now, it does feel strange and out of place.
G.I. Julie, any additional comments? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even like Three Stooges references in current culture, because they just age, anything that you're looking at, or I don't know. I just, it dates things. Not only does it date things, but it's just like, I never really found the Three Stooges to be funny.
I did.
Oh, I wasn't commenting on the Three Stooges. I was just saying in the context of the story.
Within the context of the story, it was unnecessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a minute, I thought you were going to make a Three Stooges noise. Like you almost did. Like yeah.
No, I wasn't going to do that. But I mean, I do it if it's asked of me.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you make that sound, and nobody's going to think that that's Three Stooges. They're going to think you're being Zoidberg, so...
What's
that?
Oh,
yeah.
True. Yeah, from Futurama.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reference felt very like Hercules referencing Air Jordans. You know what I mean? Like
did you think Larry Bird was going to be in the cloud dimension or something?
At least Penny Hardaway.
Or maybe MJ, like Michael Jordan. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
not the other MJ, Michael Jordan.
They're both there.
They're both there. Okay,
Yeah, why not?
Michael Jordan with his Air Jordans. That'd be perfect.
You know, that reminds me of a joke from the original Transformers series too, where there's this like there are these kids and they're like breakdancing outside on some cardboard, and like the cops show up or whatever. So he grabs his boombox and he goes, "Let's make like Michael Jackson and beat it," and runs away.
They're awful.
No.
Awful joke.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
It did not age well, that joke.
No.
No.
Okay. So
Anyway.
yeah.
People should, if they like horror or anything like fantasy horror and stuff like that, I would say pick it up. But otherwise, like if you're interested in Spider-Man, maybe don't look at it just for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Except maybe that one panel where Spider-Man's fighting a dragon, because that's pretty freaking sick.
It's great.
I didn't
Oh
know
my
his
God.
web could withstand that.
He didn't either, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah, sometimes it's indestructible, sometimes it's not. It depends on what the story needs.
Oh yeah.
Also, it's not like a real bad guy, right? Because his spider sense isn't going off, and he realizes he's like, oh, this is just here to teach this little girl a lesson, I guess.
So here's a question: since his spidey sense didn't go off, was it real?
No,
It was not real.
I'd say no. I'd say it was. They weren't ever in any danger.
I think it was technically real, but it was never going to kill them. Like, it was never dangerous, but
Here's a question.
Okay. Okay. Are these all written
Yeah,
down?
Keep them coming.
I'm sorry if I'm
No.
No,
Taking.
go.
But-
oh, not at all.
on a lot of the Spider-Man comic. Like I've read a lot of Spider-Man, but not in a long time. But it seems like the cops are always questioning Spider-Man for being like evil and causing the crimes. Why? Like, how much time has to pass for them to be like, Spider-Man is not gonna steal shit? You know, like, I don't know.
Well, that's just, I know what you're saying, but that's his shtick, or that's like a shtick of the book, is that the cops are always blaming him. Like, that's just one of the things that happens, you know?
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually the better Peter Parker is doing, the worse Spider-Man's doing, because the more photos that the Bugle runs of Spider-Man doing something, the worse Spider-Man looks, because they use that against Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the whole dynamic. So usually it kind of goes back to the Bugle, like falsifying stuff about Spider-Man to make him look bad, and
That's okay.
the police
yeah.
don't like it. Yeah, don't like him. And it depends on the police officer and the story and what's needed then. So
Did I ever tell you the story of how I tried to buy a car from a guy that looked exactly like J. Jonah Jameson?
Really?
oh my god.
He was also mean. He was very mean.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
I'll
it
end
turn
there.
out?
I want $2,000.
Actually, it was similar. It was like, he was like, I want this price. He was like not budging on the price, and I won't go into specifics, but he was mean.
Aw.
Did you buy the car?
No way.
Oh.
I went to
Not
someone
for that.
else.
Sucks to suck for that guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, do you have any more questions written down?
Who?
Anybody.
What do you think? You,
Anybody.
Dave? Or
Oh,
anyone
me?
else? Yeah.
I like to do spontaneous questions, but
Okay.
Do I have any more? No.
Okay.
Man, I'm just looking at Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein pictures and getting very nostalgic about it.
So the moment you said that, I immediately Googled it, muted my microphone,
girl.
and Googled it.
Girl,
Wow.
you should have been on Tumblr in like 2012. The girls were thirsty for this Frankenstein.
I mean, I can see why.
Why is he jacked? Why is he so hot? I don't understand.
He's got
Well,
like
I'm sorry. If you're gonna build a creation, are you not gonna make him jacked and hot?
That's
It's true.
You know what? Fair.
Josh
And
has a point.
Frankenstein does have a lot of interesting undertones.
Mm-hmm.
Of a man making the perfect man, and it's just a huge, jacked Adonis of a man.
I never thought about it like that before.
Oh, I've only thought about it like that before.
Right. I mean, fair.
No, you should. High school Rebecca, every paper I could, I wrote about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Really?
Just
Yeah, 'cause
shoehorn that in, like
Yeah,
Has there ever
presentation in phys ed. Frankenstein.
always.
Has there ever been a Spider-Man Frankenstein crossover?
Google.
Hold on.
Let me see. There has been a Dracula and Batman crossover.
Okay.
Oh, wait a
That is a
minute.
little graphic novel.
Wait a minute. Marvel Team Up number 36.
Marvel team up.
Spider-Man,
Spider-Man and the Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
Did you guys
should
review
we-
that one?
Should we read
No.
No.
No, it's
number
it's
36.
too old. But
No, we should not.
but
Not Marvel
maybe-
team up. No way, never.
maybe we can do a special episode. Anyway.
They also did Man Wolf.
What year was that one? The Frankenstein one?
80.
Well, this one, it's 75.
Oh. Okay.
Because
And then the
I know
invaders
Frankenstein's-
meet Frankenstein as well.
Yeah, because I know he's in like the Marvel universe. All of the classic monsters kind of are, right. The Wolfman.
Yes, it's kind of funny. Yeah, they are. You're right. Yeah, Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, and Mummy, I think.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. It was a Living Pharaoh too. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of. There was an episode of Ultimate Spider-Man where they're all in it. It's like the Halloween
Oh,
episode.
yeah. And I think Man Thing there
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah, Man Thing. Hold on, I gotta look up that episode.
Well, while you're doing that, let's do our recommendations.
On
So
Blade?
we've kind of already covered this, but I would recommend this comic, but with a humongous preamble to explain to the person that, you know, this is not a typical story. Definitely don't recommend it as the first Spider-Man comic you read, but if you're a fan of fantasy, then you'll definitely enjoy the story. Dave Constantino, what do you think?
I'm on a similar agreement there. I wouldn't not recommend it to someone, but I would definitely say it's not your typical Spider-Man, so don't expect too much Spider-Man-y things other than web shields. No, that's not a normal thing. Other than, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm screwing up my train of thought here. So yeah, I would just say it's not your typical Spider-Man comic, but if you like horror and a strange alternate universe that involves clouds, maybe you should read it.
Okay, G.I. Jolie, what do you think?
I recommend it in two parts. If you are interested in Spider-Man comics and are also interested in not high fantasy, just like fantasy, I would hand this to somebody who, you know, doesn't read. If somebody handed this to me as a person who doesn't read comics or would like to read superhero comics, but didn't know, you know, where I should jump in, this would have been perfect. I love the art. I love fantasy. I love cartoons that look exactly like this. Examples being like The Last Unicorn, like Becca said. Those three words keep ringing in my ears, and I know it seems very strange to recommend this as a book, but I don't think the right people recommended books to me to read when I asked for recommendations, because this would have been, had they asked what I enjoy outside of comics, or visually, like as a very visual person, they may have come to rest on this book. Or they may not have, I don't know.
Not Identity Crisis and
Well, that I
Civil
picked up on my
War.
own.
Okay.
Yeah, that one I picked up on my own because of Brad Betzer.
Okay.
And it turned out I really, really loved that book. And that is kind of what made me search out on my own.
Okay.
Jolie, we need to start a podcast called Here Comes the Doctor Strange.
Yes, please.
Because if you like this, I think that I think you would really like a lot of the Doctor Strange comics, especially more recent ones are actually pretty good. I know today's comics, they're not good. There's a lot of good good Doctor Strange comics now. The further back you go, the kind of weirder it gets, and it's kind of like a little bit corny, but this is kind of the tone of what I know of Doctor Strange, and I really enjoy it.
Jolie, we need to start a podcast called Doctor Strange Fantasy about 1960s Doctor Strange comics, and I think you'd like those ones more.
It should be well.
Right.
Do you know what? Okay, I think we should all start a podcast called Side Piece, where we just talk about things that we mentioned on the Spider-Cast in more depth. Like go. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Don't. I will talk about Mary Shelley's
Frankenstein. It's like a
Frankenstein.
show and tell. I love that.
Until I can't talk anymore.
Right?
Which is never.
Becca should start her own podcast on Frankenstein.
I could just do it on my own. I just talk about Mary Shelley all day. Did you know she lost her virginity on her mother's grave? Isn't that dope?
Oh,
very dope.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mary Shelley's the gothest to ever exist, and she created fantasy and sci-fi. So queen, we stand a queen over here.
I thought you were gonna say to Frankenstein, but
no.
Have we been through all of our recommendations? No, mine was the last.
I didn't say anything yet. No, I'm just busy talking about Mary Shelley. I absolutely recommend this. Just the cover alone, the wraparound cover, because I know you can't really tell digitally, but it is a wraparound cover. Yes, this art is awesome. I don't care at all that Spider-Man's in it, but it doesn't matter to me, even a little bit. I adore this man's work. I kind of wish the art in this was a little bit more like the art in Frankenstein, but I'm sure Marvel does not have the time. It didn't have the time or the budget for something like that, even though I'm pretty sure Bernie Wrightson didn't get paid for Frankenstein. I think he did it because he loved it, which makes it even more better. But yeah, so obviously you're not going to have that kind of level of work in a Marvel graphic novel, because even though this artwork is very beautiful, I'm sure it took him years to do Frankenstein. So Marvel's like, we'll give you a couple months.
Right.
Also put Spider-Man in it.
Yep. Good point. Joshua Mervell, do you recommend it?
Yeah, I think the only time I would not recommend this if somebody was asking me for a good Spider-Man story.
Right.
Because it's not good because of Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not going to come up as those classic Spidey stories, that I would point out to somebody to show them how great Spider-Man can be. Maybe if a Spider-Man fan was like, hey, do you have any recommendations for weird Spider-Man stories I've never read before? This might come up, you know what I mean? As already being a Spider-Man fan, be like, yeah, read this weird freaking thing that happened where he was pushed into another dimension. But no, I would definitely recommend this story. I had a lot of fun reading it.
I wish I did, but I didn't. But I still recommend it because, again, I give Marvel props for trying something different and for doing, a different take on Spider-Man. And of course, the art is great. It's not quite my cup of tea, but obviously he is a great artist and he's a legend. So for that, yeah, I recommend it. And with that, I would like to thank Dave Constantino for joining us for the second time. Again, it feels like there was many more, but I guess it's only been 2. But
yeah,
it's a good time.
I can come back.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Hope so, yeah.
Sooner if you want.
For sure, sooner than later.
For an actual Spider-Man and not this stuff.
Right.
Which, don't get me wrong, great. But
whatever you want.
Okay, sounds good, man. We'll definitely have you back. And I guess it's time to announce what we're doing next week, guys? Because it is number 100. Next week is the biggest episode we'll ever do. We're gonna do.
Oh, dear Lord.
We're gonna do lists.
I'm unprepared.
We're gonna have some surprise lists that I'm sure everyone's busy at home preparing for homework, like our favorite this, our favorite that. We won't say what they are to keep it a surprise, but yeah, we'll have a few lists ready for people. And then as for what we're reviewing, because it's the 100th episode, we can't just do a normal Spider-Man review. We're gonna jump ahead to 2002, folks, and we're gonna review the first ever live-action Spider-Man movie starring Tobey Maguire, directed by Sam Raimi. Yes, 2002, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Anyway,
I just watched it.
Oh, perfect.
I've been wanting to rewatch them too.
Yeah,
so it's
I have
perfect
not
timing.
rewatched this movie in like 15 years, so I'm really looking forward to this. So I'm sure there's no dated jokes, but anyway, we'll talk about that next week. Okay, so anyway, thanks again, Dave Constantino, and Josh. You can take it from here.
Yeah, we also want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, or you could drop us a line on Twitter at HCT Spidercast. Please let us know what you guys think about the comics we're reading and the podcast itself. We want to keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until next Monday, Spider
Spider
friends.
friend?
Disperse.
Go for it.